Doughnut Macroom. Welcome to Tales from the Land, a participatory community research project where we, the Green Step community, are inquiring into the 21st century realities of food production, farming and living well with the land.
I'm Mel.
And I'm John.
And we're your hosts.
In these podcasts and online events, we'll use the arts of conversation and storytelling to listen, learn and create new understandings of one another and the multitude of approaches being used to engage with the complexities of the climate and biodiversity crises we find ourselves living in. As we go, we'd love to hear from you about your experience, struggles, ideas and visions for a sustainable, prosperous and just future for all. Please send us your ideas to thegreenstep3@gmail.com and we'll include what emerges as we engage with policy consultations for land use in Ireland. Our ancestral practices of tending to the land are rooted in our Irish culture, heritage and language. How can we weave these rooted wisdoms together with modern solutions for sustainability? We'll meet with you and a variety of folk to explore these questions together. We intend to listen and learn from the tales of the land and see where the journey takes us. Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to episode 2 of our living research project, Tales from the Land. Today we're heading off down to West Cork to Mose, Alice Glenndinning and Dermot Robinson. Mose and Alice have both co-founded the West Cork Doughnut Economy Network back in April in 2020, and they have a group of people who are connecting in with a wider network of people around Ireland and around the world who are putting doughnut economics into place. Before we get started, I suggest you Google doughnut economics so you have a visual as we move forward. You'll find it on the website as well, but I think for now, Google it, make sure you can see it before we land you into a discussion on it. It's a new framework for thinking like a 21st century economist, and it's been presented by Kate Raworth. It's also been presented at international levels in the EU and the UN, and it's a real upcoming framework that we can really tune in with. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of talk about it. Cities like Amsterdam have taken this on, and so I think there's a lot we can learn. Mose and Alice are definitely the ladies to be telling you more about this. And then Dermot Robinson lives and works at the Robinson's family farm that was started by his parents after they farmed for a while in Kenya. Caroline and Eddie are their names. They live out by Macroom. It's a 30-acre plot of land that they've been looking after since 1998. And it sounds like a magical place to be getting your food from. So you can find them at the Coloniality market. We're going to hear more about this beautiful site as we chat. And as always, please do send us anything that inspires you along the way. And we're also going to have some gorgeous songs and poems from our lovely fairy Eve Telford. And of course, Maeve is here with her little bits of concertina smattered throughout. John's not with us today. He was teaching a module on biodiversity to help a local community up in North Cork really caretake for their own river and take control of that. So, well, not control, but to take charge and to create the plan that will work best for them. So that's where John is. So I'm holding down the fort today on my own. But sure, yeah, I'm well able. And we have a lovely conversation coming up for you. So without further ado, I will put the kettle on, I'll make us a cup of tea and we can dive in. Doughnut, Macordia, and welcome to the second episode of Tales from the Land. This week I'm joined by Mose, Alice and Dermot, who are all going to introduce themselves shortly. So our topic today is doughnut economics, and we're looking at the big system first on the second episode, because so often, at least in my experience, when I've talked to farmers or food growers or people, climate activists, money, funding, subsidies is always one of the things at the forefront of the conversation. And sometimes it can nearly even come before our love, because there's that fear, of, oh, but will I be able to make a living? Which, is such a valid fear. And there's this system called doughnut economics, which again will be introduced by much more capable hands shortly. And there's no pressure there, Alice. We're just going to take a look at it and see how it's engaging with us, like why it's kind of come into our interest, and also how it engages with how we relate to the land. So Mose and Alice are two beautiful community weavers and climate activists, and Dermot is a food grower and climate activist as well, who I haven't met and is just here in the perfect time and the perfect way. So that's meant to be how it is. So last week we started in Cove and we welcomed in the harbour, and this week we're in West Cork. So I'd love if you'd like to introduce the place you're in and yourselves, and we can go around and hear where ye are and who ye are. So Mose, I might pass over to you there.
Thank you, Melanie. Just unmuted myself. I'm in West Cork at the moment. My name is Mose Jacobs. I've lived in Ireland for 24 years or something like that. And before that, I was in Holland, where I'm born. I'm from Amsterdam originally. And I do think I live in one of the most beautiful places on earth. That could be said of many places in Ireland, but specifically now in West Cork with a view to Roaring Water Bay. And at this time of year with the trees sprouting in the beaches, getting leaves and things like that. And it's a very biodiverse place, I'm happy to say. I'm on a permaculture farm, and lucky. Okay, do you want me to say more, or was that enough for now?
Yeah, we'll do another round on the kind of types of activism people are doing, and we can welcome in Alice and her place next, if that sounds good.
Okay, yep. So I was born in Cork, went off to London in my 20s, and then came back with my very young family to live in West Cork, where I am. And I absolutely love it here. I love the sea and I love the land. I've got a glass of gorse cordial that I made. So just everybody hates gorse, but I love gorse. I love the smell of it. And now I've discovered that I can make gorse cordial out of it. So, it's a beautiful time of year here, and I can see Coloniality Bay if I kind of hang out the window a bit and, bend my head a bit. I can hear the birds outside, and I can see my little cherry tree, which is just coming into flower. It's just beautiful around here.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Really welcoming in all of that lusciousness. Thank you. Dermot, we'll pass over to you.
My name is Dermott Robinson. I've been living on this farm. My parents set it up. It's just west of Cork City, about 30 minutes west. And we're 30 acres, and we have a mixture of agroforestry, sort of like coppice forestry, and the rest is using polytunnels and cropland for we grow vegetables. And I'm sitting out, I don't know, it's our like sunroom / bedroom, and looking at a very unkept garden, but a bit wild. It's good for the birds and the bees. It's good for my time as well. You don't need to put time into it.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Very much welcoming in the wild spaces. That's beautiful. Gorgeous. So I know, like, from what I know of Alice and Mose, and so what I may be assuming about Dermot is that you kind of have your fingers in many pies around West Cork, like of different projects. I know we've got some One Future, Mose. I know you did the beautiful Connecting the Dots environmental series not so long ago. Well, it's probably longer than I would like to admit now. Time seems to be flying. Yeah, last summer. So yeah, maybe we'll do another round and you can share a bit like what you've been up to, you know, what kind of work are you doing at the moment around climate, food growing, doughnut economics, and we'll dive a bit deeper then. There's no need to go and do the whole hog right now, but a flavour would be lovely.
Okay, it was 2 years ago actually. Yeah, I think if you talk about doughnut economics, for both Alice and myself, it started with reading a book by Kate Raworth, a British economist. Yes, doughnut economics, 7 ways to think like a 21st century economist. And that it blew us away. I did read that 2 years ago, and it did feed into that Connecting the Dots meeting. One of the things that she does is make you think more circular. I think that's what more people are doing at the moment as well. Like everything is connected with everything else, and that's a bit disconcerting, but I think it's necessary. And for me, that is doughnut economics. Doughnut is the shape of a donut, but it has nothing to do with the taste, the confectionery that, you know, many people like it. I don't particularly. It's about the shape, the round shape, because in the middle is what Kate Raworth calls the social foundation. And it's like community, it's like people, it's like, you know, people shouldn't be hungry, people should have something to eat. Well, everyone wants basically, you know, food on the table, an environment, a roof above their head, simple things like that, but not so simple to achieve it for everyone. And on the outside of that same circle is what we call the planetary boundaries, because we live at a time when we realize that unless we take care of nature and take care of humanity on the planet can take care of itself, but then, you know, our days are numbered. So, and the current economy, and maybe Alice can speak about that, the current economy is based on eternal growth. And what do you think of that, Alice, of eternal growth?
Yeah, I mean, that's I suppose that's one of the foundations of the doughnut economics model, is that we can't carry on with this eternal growth, and that it's GDP and, you know, every country growing, and every business growing, you know, it just isn't sustainable. And I guess circular economy comes into it as well, which is, you know, that, you know, not having loads of waste and not just I forget it now, but it's like make waste. That's it. So yeah, and yeah, so we can't just keep on growing, and the people who are making the money out of the growing isn't the ordinary people. It's the big business, and that accounts both in agriculture and in everyday business. And I think that's one of the major issues. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, it's taken me off into looking at doughnut economics, has taken me off into looking at all sorts of other things like Vandana Shiva. I don't know whether you've heard of her. She's amazing. Yeah. And, you know, talking about local versus global. So yeah, she I think she's taken me away from this fear that by not buying, you know, sugar snap peas that come all the way from Kenya, that I'm not supporting those poor farmers in Kenya, when actually by buying them, I'm making more of a problem for them because of the whole cash crops thing. They can't afford to eat these things themselves. So I think that is really important, looking at it from that point of view as well.
Yeah, that's really really potent that you name that. I normally say that in relation to like avocados and questioning
well, should I really be like a vegan if it means I'm, it's kind of another form of colonialism? I don't know if that is sustainable. And I've been just sitting with all of those questions, and something I was struck now. I think I'm on page 78 of Doughnut Economics. I haven't read the whole book yet. But I was really struck at the start of just how she talks about how the systems or the laws of economics, they're made up. They're not actually based on natural laws. And I would imagine those natural laws is something Dermot knows loads about. So I'm wondering if you want to come in there with anything.
Well, I did geography, and I remember how geography or human geography had went through a period of having to make it a science, and I think economics had to do with that. And then they had to put all these kind of like ideas and tighten them up. But then like they're kind of too complex to test in reality. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also like a bit how I don't know. We just I don't know where I'm going with this now, but it's like we have the way we see. I think when we were more agrarian, we saw time as circles because everything came around and we did it. But then I think we've gone away and we start to see it as linear, and we can kind of see that linear. It's like, it goes on forever. Nothing comes back around, or so I think that's kind of an illusion we've got ourselves into. That we can keep going and going.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, actually, what you say about time, because that's also the graphs people look at and point out, and what central banks base their all their actions on that sort of lines on a paper. Whereas as you say, or as Kate Raworth says, that it's a fallacy. I think what the economy that we are dealing with at the moment is just like survival spiraling out of control. It's one thing to want to make money and to have a bit extra so that you have something for a rainy day. Another thing is to have money as the sole driver of an economy. That is because the economy as it is doesn't take into account the resources that it uses. It doesn't take into account nature. And that's just one aspect. And the other aspect is also our health. We don't get the information we need. If we go into the shops, we don't know whether what we buy, if we don't buy organic, if we buy the cheaper food, what is it sprayed with? What chemicals am I taking? What am I getting into my body? And that's also, why it's so important that there are farmers like Dermot, because you don't use chemicals in your farming, in your business.
Yeah. No, we don't. And it's like, it's better for the planet. Like, and even like I really came home when I remember studying in geography how you have, all the like the way Earth moves energy from the equator up to the poles. So like that's ocean currents and wind currents all go north or south. And that brings all those toxins are like come off the land, they go up in the air, and then they come down somewhere near the poles. So polar animals have way higher rates of cancers. So, like doing all this, it's just, I think nobody lives up there. So relatively, so I think we don't fully see the impact of that happening. So it's kind of like out of mind, out of sight, or out of sight, out of mind.
And they found microplastics, haven't they, up there as well?
Mm. And
in places that humans haven't been before, which is really horrible to think that we're having that effect on places that that we don't even exist in these places, and yet we're still causing them to have these microplastics. And same with antibiotic resistant bacteria. That's pretty horrendous, really.
Mm-hmm.
But can I ask something, Dermot, about, because okay, you do not. Why, if it's possible for you to farm grow vegetables without using chemicals? I mean, what kind of chemicals are traditional farmers or conventional farmers using, and why, and how come that you can grow vegetables without chemicals, and why doesn't everyone do it? These are just like 5 questions that take an hour to answer.
So normally there's some sort of herbicide, like Roundup's a very common one to like start off the field. And then there's loads of like selective herbicides which target certain families of plants, and those are sprayed on like depending on what problems you have. And then like when your plant is growing, you have insecticides and they're again can be specific, but they often like way broader than they're supposed to be. Fungicides as well. And on top of that, you have all your chemical fertilizers to get, and that's all done to like have max production, like perfect, large, uniform veg. Whereas we're kind of able to do it because like we're selling direct, so we're cutting out the middleman. We get a good price for our veg. There's a bit more work added in because of the weeding, but like as in for protection against insects, we use insect netting. That needs to be on because we have a pigeon problem at the same time anyway, so it's doing 2 jobs at the same time. And then fungicides, it's like we're not looking for a perfect broccoli plant. We just want the head. We don't want all the leaves to be completely clean. So I think our tolerance of like absolute perfection in the veg is, it doesn't need to be like like the majority of a broccoli plant nobody sees. It stays in the field. So yeah, like I think we don't need to go for perfection. And then we're doing it at a scale that's like, I don't think we're big enough to have like a sort of a real big problem, like a plague of caterpillars, because like we have half or maybe an acre, but there's all different species of brassicas at that time, and then there's onions next door. So like the caterpillar, we've never had a problem with it. So I think diversity makes it awkward for an insect pest to get going in one thing. Like sometimes we'll have like maybe a bit of brown spot on one particular variety, but it's only like maybe 5 or 10% of all the plants that are there, so it doesn't go very far, and then it burns itself out. So that's how.
Yeah.
I presume if you've got loads of little birds around the place, if you're encouraging birds, they're going to be picking off the insects.
They will,
and that'll keep the balance.
Yeah, so it's all about like good wildlife habitat around the edge. And then like it's not just like you need the wildlife habitat to like tide the birds over for food when there isn't any crops in the ground. Like you're going from probably like, depending on your crop, but you probably like caterpillar season, I'm not too sure how long it is, but like say September all the way around to May is no caterpillars at all. So birds got to eat something else then.
Yeah, I love just how much you're naming the complexity, because I think that's like and perfection, because I think those things like just don't go hand in hand. You can't have this want for something to be perfect and have the complexity, because it just doesn't work. I have this inner perfectionist in me, and when I am engaging with something that is particularly complex, I realize more and more that I kind of have to like let go of my ego or my think that I know what's best and I know how to do this. And it sounds like the way you farm, you listen to the land and you're listening to like the cycle there of like you know, when the caterpillars aren't there and when they are there, and just listening to the rhythms like that are around you. And I've always wondered, like, you know, is your way of farming, like, does it mean you need more people tending to the land? Is it a potential way to create more jobs and help people with their mental health, like to have outdoor jobs, you know? Or is that just a kind of a nice fantasy that I have?
No, it is more hands-on. Like there'd be some crops are less hands-on, like you could almost like get away without doing anything, but like there's like we have loads because of the diversity of crops, we have loads of tomatoes and stuff and peppers, and they need loads of work. Well, again, our scale is like not big enough that like it's absolutely daunting if you're a person in that field going, oh my god, this like I think like our neighbors here remember as kids like having to weed, I don't know, like 6 or 7 acres of like sugar beet, and like that's like as a kid you're like looking at that field going, that is so daunting. But like, you know, when it's all broken down into different things, it's kind of like with a couple of people those jobs go through, and so you're not like being run down by the boredom and monotony of repeating a task over and over.
How many people would be working on your farm?
So there's myself and my girlfriend, my mum and dad, my brother and his girlfriend, and then we have 2 people part-time at the moment.
And you're also involved in selling it?
Yes, yeah. So, but it's all pretty much a family business by the part-time people.
One of the things that's kind of that I've come to be aware of, I suppose, is about inputs and how expensive it is for farmers. And I think it's one of the things that keeps farmers sort of stuck in the way that they farm. And it's funny because the other day I was going for a walk, and this massive big lorry with, you know, a big, I don't know what they're called, like a bed on the back of it, just full of bags of fertilizer. And it came up the road past me, and it went into the farm. And I thought, I didn't expect that they would take every single bag was for them. But it was, because when it came back out past me again later, it was empty. Yeah. And I was just, it's so mad that, you know, that I think a lot of farmers are stuck in this kind of having to buy this stuff, and then they get into the debt, and then it's so expensive to keep that going.
Yeah.
And we're especially seeing that in India with the farmers there with GMO crops, and how, you know, like that someone will come in, just in case anyone listening just isn't aware, that like, you know, you need to buy the genetically modified crops that are resistant to the Roundup pesticides and herbicides, and basically those plants can live in that toxic environment, and people need to buy that specific seed and then keep buying the fertilizer to grow that seed. And what really horrified me was when I realized that the pollinators that go from a field that has GMO seeds to a field that doesn't have GMO seeds pollinate them, so now that the non-GMO seeds become GMO, and even though that farmer never bought into that system, now they are, and because those seeds have a patent, they're tied into this system. And I mean, it has decimated. Yeah, it has decimated the Indian economy, and it's really horrifying. It's a really big issue, I think.
There's huge amount of suicides in India, and it's happening in Africa as well. This what's it called? Green agricultural something or other, and it's the same thing again. And they're stopping the farmers from collecting and sharing seeds. They've actually made it illegal. So, and we're not in any way in that space, I don't think. But I don't think we're that far off in Ireland. You know, I think again, I do think that Irish farmers are very much caught up in that debt and being pulled into that.
Yeah, because we also have a market that is used to like cheap food. You know, I'm one of them. I don't have a massive income, and I do struggle to pay for good food, and I do my best to do it, but sometimes I can't as much as I want to. And that's a really big struggle, I think, when we're looking at like food production. And I know growing it yourself can be an answer, but again, that's not for everyone. If you're working a full-time job and you have 3 kids, or, you know, whatever the way that your life goes, and that isn't an option, it can be a really big like limiting factor for people. So like, I'm just kind of wondering what you think on that, maybe relating to doughnut economics, or, you know, having your family run farm, or if whatever maybe is relevant there.
Cheaper rent. I think it'd be cheaper rent. I remember seeing something like we now spend about 10% of our income on average on food, but in the 40s after the wars, I think it was close to half of the income was spent on food. But then accommodation costs were actually way lower, and then we didn't have like so much stuff to buy back then as well. So I think people's priorities were a bit more shifted. So now we've got like ridiculous rents or property costs, and then like loads of stuff to buy, that's built to, I suppose, I don't know, a lot of it is built to be obsolete or break.
That's definitely where the circular economy comes in. The amount of stuff, and again, it's this consumerism thing where we're sucked into, gotta buy this and I want that, and buying stupid things that you don't need.
It's an addiction. I mean,
it is an addiction. Yeah.
Buying stuff is like for many people, I didn't realize that, but for many people, it's like an addiction, like alcoholism or workaholic. It's just to distract you from yourself. It's like, it gives a little quick reward, and then it's a bit like junk food. But how do you deal with pricing on your farm? How do the prices of your vegetables, how do they compare to other?
I don't know. I don't personally go into Lidl. I can't really compare. Like some of the stuff is so ridiculously cheap. I just can't see how the farmers making income out of that.
Well, they call it loss leaders, don't they, in supermarkets, where they sell vegetables at a really low price. Yeah. They know that they're making a loss on it, or the farmers definitely making a loss on it. And then it's their way of getting people in. So they can they can tell you, we've got leeks on offer for 40 cents for a bag, and you just think that's ridiculous,
Yeah, you wonder how much the people that have worked, how much did they get paid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, if I eat a carrot and it's not organic, I mean, how much of the fungicides and insecticides and pesticides you mentioned, how much is going into me? Have you any idea how does that work? How does the use of those chemicals on a farm, how does that translate to what we actually eat?
I can't say for sure, but like I know, for example, no spray is supposed to go on food 2 weeks before it's harvested, but then sometimes farmers are stuck. They might have put a spray out, and then the supermarket calls and says, we need, I don't know, 20 tons of cabbage, but they've just sprayed. But then and then they have to harvest because they lose the contract.
When I
go on.
Yeah, I was just saying, when I hear that, I feel so much like grief. I feel so uncomfortable in my body. I feel like kind of horrified, and it feels like such a big emotion. It makes me really understand the kind of like what you named there, Mose, about like being addicted to shopping or whatever. Like when we're so disconnected from nature, from where our food comes from our communities. Like, geez, Dermot, when you just said there, how it sounds like it's all your family and a couple of people who work part-time. That just sounds like heaven to me. In my life, and my family system just is not like that at all. We're in a suburb and we're spread out, and we usually have to drive to see each other or things like, and I feel so much grief that I don't have a system like that, and that I can't just walk outside and see where my food is growing, as much as I'm trying. But like, geez, I'm really not the best grower. My kombucha now is going pretty well, but and I'm constantly learning. Good. Yeah. But yeah, I feel so much. Yeah. Yeah. I do have loads of lavender outside, which I do love. I know it's not really the nicest to eat, but I love lavender.
And it's really good for keeping like biting insects away and things like that. If you want to sit outside, it's really good for that.
That's good to know. Dreaming, I've been told today. Now,
awesome.
Dermot, could you say something about, because you said there was a lot of biodiversity around or wildlife around your crops? Could you say how that works in practice? Do you have hedgerows or?
I'm going to interject here for a moment before we hear more from Dermot with a beautiful song written and performed by Eve Telford called The Garden. Eve sings as if she is from another time. In fact, I think she is from another time. So I hope you'll enjoy being taken away on this beautiful journey with Eve. And I'll meet you back after to let you know how you can contribute to this project.
The bluebird will fly through the sky, and the garden will grow again soon. Yes, the garden will grow again soon, for the garden she grows with the moon. Yes, the garden she grows with the moon. Sing, lily, sing, lily, sing, Gillavor in time. Sing, lily, sing, lily, sing, Marjoram and chive. Ah, the waves will flow once again, and the fennel is sown when she's new. Yes, the fennel is sown when she's new, and all is one with the moon. Yes, all is one with the moon. Sing, Molly, sing, Molly, sing, aniseed and sage. Sing, Molly, sing, Molly, sing, caraway and maize. Moonward on should a horse, now we gather our silent charms, as she shines her eternal course. Mandrake the lunar sake, now we carry our bowls at night, and fill them with the sweet moonlight. Ah, the waves will shine once again, and the marjoram is sown when she is full. Yes, the marjoram is sown when she's full, and the garden is chained to her pull. Yes, the garden is chained to her pull. Sing, Molly, sing, Molly, sing, aniseed and sage. Sing, Molly, sing, Molly, sing, caraway and maize. Ah, the skies will shine once again, and the basil is sown at her wane. Yes, the basil is sown at her wane, and the cycle of life starts again. Yes, the cycle of life starts again. Sing, lily, sing, lily, sing, Gillivor and time. Sing, lily, sing, lily, sing, marjoram and chive. Sing, Molly, sing, aniseed and sage. Sing, Molly, sing, caraway and mace.
Absolutely beautiful. Galling. So yeah, this project is a living research project with contributions from artists, growers, activists, land lovers, farmers, creators, makers, everyone. Everyone is welcome, and you as a listener is very, very welcome to participate. So if you have any thoughts, if anything has particularly moved you, perhaps you have a poem to share, or perhaps something you would like to contribute to our policy document for the agri-food policy, please send your submissions to thegreenstep3@gmail.com. And you can also support us in a financial way to support us as we edit and produce and create this living document by going to our website www.thegreenstep.org, and you can find all the links you'll need there to donate and find out more about other episodes. So with that, we'll get back to hear back from Dermot and what they're doing on their land to really bring and welcome the biodiversity of nature into little pockets and corners of their farm. Gurv Mila.
So yeah, our fields are probably, we've all planted like loads of trees. I don't know, every year we plant a couple of hundred trees, and we're still finding spaces to put them in. And so then like a mixture of natives and non-natives. And then, yeah, so the hedgerows, I don't know, probably it's not like the most ideal for like wildlife in terms of distance to the center of the field, but it works for us. And like you'd see, like say Scots pine, I've seen like ladybirds overwintering in them, or even like patches of nettles are really good to have like feed of early aphids. So then that gives feed. It allows the ladybird population to ramp up, and then when our crops are out on the ground, there's already a large population of ladybirds and larvae ready to go out into the crop if there's a problem out there. But and then like those insects then feed on to all the birds, and like if the birds have somewhere to live and the prey has somewhere to live, then you'll have plenty of birds. So it's you have to kind of almost farm the wild areas a little bit to make sure that there's something there for the biodiversity the whole time. Leaves it.
And I think I think just you said they're nettles. So you're not maybe deliberately doing it, but I think is there 3 butterflies in Ireland that their young only feed on nettles. So having nettles is really important, and people again, it's another one, people don't like nettles, but actually nettles are really important for butterflies, which everybody loves.
Yeah.
And it's a great medicine. I love
and a great medicine. Yeah, vitamin C. I did make a soup and it was a disaster, I have to say, so I haven't tried again. Plants. I use nettle tea for my plants, so but I don't make soup of it anymore.
Gorgeous.
Just add lots of cream and onions. Okay.
Oh, my little girls they were very young, and they still thought that mummy was the best. And so they started drinking it and saying, this is lovely. And my husband, who maybe wouldn't be quite so kind, said, no, this is disgusting. I think I was the only one who kept going for a while, but I eventually put it on the compost heap.
But do you also like, because I think a lot of problems for biodiversity have to do with the fact that people want a kind of totally clean environment, like they want totally a lawn without any any flowers, and they clear away nettles and deadwood and that kind of stuff. But whereas that is very good for insects and other smaller animals or even larger animals. So do you have a policy of that around the farm as well, that you don't clear
well, I suppose it's not a policy just as much as avoiding work. I suppose the hedges, if they're not in the way, they don't get cut. So yeah, they do every now and then. We have to, like, if their branch starts to creep out into the road, we're like, oh well, it's going to damage the tractor someday, so we'll have to take that one. But yeah, no, it's like, that's the thing. Like, you don't actually have to do much to have a nice wild space. You just have to kind of, like, you might add a tree here or there, but you just leave it off. Like, brambles will turn up on their own, nettles will turn up on their own, like, all that sort of stuff will kind of look after itself.
Okay. But you don't have goats? No goats?
No goats, no. We have, like, had our neighbour's sheep, and like, the place looked really tidy, but then, like, they went, so then it stopped looking tidy. But yeah.
I know somebody actually who was borrowing a goat to do their lawn. I don't know how well it went after that, because I think goats can be a bit. Yeah, they can escape.
I remember working with goats. They're supposed to be as clever as a dog. I don't kind of like that in an animal that's only meant to eat stuff, like, because they'd always, like, look out the fence. They'd have the most luscious grass in there, and be looking out the fence at, like, something they're not supposed to have, and they work out how to get out, like.
Yeah,
it's such like just an interconnected way of being, where it's not just about the human, like, it's not just about us, it's about everything, like, being part of this complex system. I feel like our conversation and all the different things we've named and the different things we've touched on is like a representation of the complexity of everything. And I feel like if someone was listening to this chat and wanted just this kind of clean, perfect, polished thing, I think they'd be listening and getting quite confusing. But I think we are like a living representation of the complex system that we're trying to engage with, especially when we think about it at a global scale and a global level. Absolutely. And I might tell a story about the cyclic nature, because it's coming out of West Cork, and maybe we can tie it back in again with, like, donut economics as we go and see what emerges. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you know, down in West Cork, you've got the beautiful, kind of rugged landscape and these stones, and also the highest concentration of stone circles and sacred sites in all of Europe, actually. It's such a potent energy. And the earth goddess of these parts of Ireland is Untitled, or the crone, the old hag. And I think the old hag is, in a way, like that patch of nettles, that has the cow poo next to it and the flies that people kind of go, ugh, and you might look at her and go, oh, like, who's your one? But when you really look at her, you see this, like, beautiful twinkle of wisdom in her eyes. And if you asked her how old she was, she says she doesn't even remember. And she is the land, the story down in West Cork goes that, firstly, everybody in Cork and Kerry is a descendant of her. She's had husband after husband and lived for hundreds of years. And the landscape arose as she ran across the land and had a boulder, an apron full of boulders, and each one crashed and landed on the earth. And that's the landscape. And especially, I think, in the West, you know, right at the edge, like peeking out at the Atlantic, this really harsh weather. Like, she's had to be really wise to live to be so old, what to forage, what herbs for what ailments, how to grow the food, and to give counsel to the young folk. And she's also like known as the winter goddess. And again, you know, we live in this modern, perfect, clean, I'm doing all of this in inverted commas because we all know it's not, but this world that seems to want that and doesn't want us to age or have gray hairs or wrinkles or be, you know, acknowledge that things need to die and be composted and return to the system. And so she is the winter, and she is, I think, what we need to embrace again. But the beauty in her story is that she goes down to the water every 100 years and steps into the ocean and goes down beneath the waves and is there just that little bit too long that you think, okay, she's said goodbye. But then you see this bright red, like, light emerging of this fiery mane of red hair, and the maiden of Bridget emerges. The springtime, this new growth. And I hope the place we're in right now can be like that maiden. And perhaps Doughnut Economics offers us a little window into this shiny new way of being after, hopefully, what we've left, some of the ways that aren't serving us go. And I'd love to hear what you think or how that lands in relation to anything there.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. That's a really beautiful story. I don't know if everyone likes the idea of West Cork being an old goddess, but and a new goddess. No, you see, to be very practical. I mean, we started the West Cork Doughnut Economy Network because we want to connect we want to connect with, there's an Irish Doughnut Economic Network that is connected to a kind of global Doughnut Economic Network in progress, you know, from a central lab of interactive groups interconnecting. And there is places like Amsterdam and other cities and even Cornwall, I think, where the government is looking at ways to implement Doughnut economics. Because you said it was a system, but it's more like an ideal. And the system has to be invented in some ways in every place. Like, I think we should be looking at local employment, but we should also be looking at, in a way, what really appealed to me in Kate Raworth's philosophy is that businesses should be forced by law not to just serve a couple of shareholders, but to serve the community and not to damage nature and that's like a legal prescription that should be in every business, and that's not the case at the moment. They're there to make money, to make profit.
It's not the case. I might just add in there that it's not the case yet. I'm saying yet because there is this really beautiful impulse of social enterprise arriving in Ireland, and they've only put in legislation to kind of outline what a social enterprise is in the last 2 years. And basically it means that the social cause is put at the centre. And I've been at some really good events with the Department of Rural Development, and they really are keen on having social enterprise at the heart of the recovery, because they're starting to realise that it is people in voluntary organisations and heart-centred businesses, you know, the do-gooders of the world, like, oh, if we back them, we actually have a better chance of navigating our way out, I think. So yeah, I just want to add that in there, because I totally agree with you that for the large portion of maybe business, it's more about profit. But the small businesses and the social enterprises, I think, are growing alongside this. But yeah, go on ahead.
Yeah, I think that is really important, because you need like a two-pronged approach, like come smaller and more social enterprises, but you also need to rein in the large enterprise, like the banks. You know, banks have had so much money to bail them out. You go to a Bank of Ireland and you thank the lady who helped you, which was really good. You had to go to the bank, and then she says, yes, they want to get rid of us. You know, they're closing down the bank branches, they're taking over the post office. It's just about profit. And unless that is sort of stopped from on a government level, legal level, they're going to continue. It's like, they just wanted to survive in that way. And I think, there's so many levels that we have to feed into that system. Like we have phones, and then you can't get to customer services. And why not? Because they do not want to employ too many people. They want to use machines. And everyone knows that's not to the benefit of people, especially old people, but everyone who just wants to use their phone in a normal way. You can't phone customer services. And, if that would change, then you would have more employment, because the focus would be on people and not on machines and making money. And it sounds like a political statement. Well, it is, I suppose.
It is political. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Alice.
I was in a bookshop during the summer, and lovely local, beautiful little bookshop, but there's a lady there, and she had a walking frame or something, and she wanted to sit down, but the chair had been taken away. And the reason the chair had been taken away was because of coronavirus. And I just think, this kind of, to me, that just seems mad, because the shop had been told you can't have stuff like that, and I just think we say it's a bit like, we've shut all the small businesses, but Amazon is thriving. All the big businesses, they're all making so much money now. And how do we balance that?
And not paying taxes.
And not paying taxes. Yeah, exactly.
To the advantage of people who have money. And you could look at what's it called, universal basic income or whatever. I think what is really important is that people know that they have something to eat and a roof over their head.
I think that's part of doughnut economics is that the idea of a basic social income. And we definitely need to look at that. I mean, I often think, like, I'm a project manager, and I'm well paid for it. I really want to be out, doing my polytunnel and my forest garden. I'm with my chickens, but it doesn't pay me enough to do that. Or I want to be bringing doughnut economics to Ireland, or I want to be doing things that are good. I want to be, as I tell my daughter, I want to be saving the world, but they won't pay me properly to do that,
Yeah, which I think is where, these kind of networks, that we are all part of in many ways, that's where that comes in, that hopefully we can create those ways of sustaining ourselves that kind of goes even beneath those big systems that are there, and being able to follow and do the things we really want to do and be able to make a living. Like, I am doing those things I want to do and saving the planet, and not really making that much money. So, but it's about connecting the dots, as Mose might say, and weaving things together. And I think, I really just admire, the courage of everyone here for really speaking, the truth, especially in calling out these big companies and the ways things are, because I think a lot of people are scared of that, and I just really want to say that I really value your courage.
It's not such a big risk at the moment in Ireland, but if I can hear people think, oh, they want to give everyone a basic income, but giving away money. But they should remember that the banks, the central banks, have been pouring money into the system for years and years and years, and also governments like in America, and a lot of that just ends up with people who already have loads and loads of money.
Yeah.
Companies. So, giving money away. And if people have a basic income, they don't have to worry about food, being hungry. Yeah. And whatever they earn on top of that, they can use to buy other stuff and keep an economy going that way. I was at
a very interesting training where we were doing nonviolent communication and talking about our needs and getting it back to the needs all the time. And I, at the time, had said something about, being mindful of money. And the instructor said, money isn't a need, it's a strategy to meet our needs. And that really struck me. And just maybe putting it back in that kind of context, as opposed to this ruler, we need to worship the gods on Wall Street, which was very satisfying that they were taken down by a Reddit thread. Yeah, Dermot, I know you've been a bit quiet there for a while. I'm wondering, do you want to add anything?
I don't know. I've just read The Life of a Tree, I think, by David Suzuki and another fella. But you kind of have to have, like, the next stage of a forest is always growing underneath the canopy of the giants, the head of it. So I think we have to be there in the shadows for when that big tree falls over, then up we go.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that might be a nice note to begin to close on. And I'd just like to, if anyone here has been listening and really wants to reach out to you and learn more, like, are there any events coming up that you'd like to name? Or I can share your emails or things like that. But is there any ways you'd like to invite people to kind of connect in with the work that's going on?
So there's DEAL, which is doughtnuteconomics.org, and that's the kind of worldwide doughnut economics group. And then we're West Cork Doughnut Economy Network. Sometimes I forget what we're called. So we'd love to have people in West Cork join us and give us more ideas. Food is where we've started, but there's an awful lot to be covered. And then there's IDEN, which you'd find on DEAL, and you'd find us on DEAL as well. Alice
IDEN is the Irish Doughnut Economic Network. They have weekly open meetings, a virtual cuppán, and one monthly open meeting in the evening, and the other meetings are 10 o'clock on Friday mornings. And we are going to have like a public meeting at the end of June or in July, where we'll invite as many people as possible. But at the moment, we're exploring, what we can do as a network, how we could proceed. And we're also, we're talking to a lot of people. We're talking to politicians as well. We're talking to like Dermot and, food growers and others, just exploring the terrain, because it's not easy to come up with like, a recipe for the donut. It has to be, the wheel has to be invented to some extent. But then we can also exchange all that information with other people, with the donut in India or whatever, and learn from each other. And in this time, in this day and age, you can do that, as opposed to before, thanks to Zoom.
Yeah, one thing I have noted is just being grateful for the technology to weave us together. And thank you. Dermot, is there anything you'd like to add there as we kind of draw to a close?
I don't have any social media to follow, but you can buy our veg in Colkey and Macroom. Or no, Colkey on Saturdays and Macroom Town on Tuesdays.
Gorgeous. Yum. I look forward to visiting.
Dermot, I just wanted to ask you, I saw on the website that you have something called Food Tour. Could you say what that is?
It's, I'm not fully sure myself, but the two ladies that set it up, I forget their names now, but they wanted to make a ethical food map of Ireland. And so they've gone about by trying to get in producers, wholesalers and cafes, kind of completing the chain and putting them on a map of Ireland. It's a slow progress, but I think every time I go on, there's a few more people added on.
Okay, I thought it was something only for your business, but it's a wider, it's a network actually. It's
I suppose a small producers network. So I think the lady who has set it up, she's owns a micro dairy, and but it's as a good way of connecting customers with ethical food.
Yeah, gorgeous.
So it's nationwide.
We'll link it. Thank you for that. Another connection. Okay, beautiful. I think we'll draw it to a close there. Thank you all for your contributions and for our explorations through the complexity of food systems and economics and how it relates to us. Thank you all for everything you said.
Thanks so much, Melanie.
Thanks, Melanie.
Really, really interesting.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank Thank you for listening. Thank you for donating your ears to us today and listening to what we had to share and say. I met with Mose, Alice and Dermot, and I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation and exploration, and I hope you did too. If you want to explore a little bit more, you can find more informative links relating to topics we discussed on our website, www.thegreenstep.org. And also, there is Ireland's third National Food Systems Dialogue coming up on May 4th at 2:30. I'll be attending that anyway, so I'll be able to bring back what I've learned. I intended on attending the last one, which was on health and well-being for people and society. But at the same time it was on, there was also a talk about Indigenous people engaging with the UN climate, with the UN Food Systems Dialogue. And I really wanted to offer them my listening. So I tuned in instead there and had some really wonderful insights, which we're sharing next week. Next week's episode is on decoloniality, which is basically the pushback, the movement that has come from Indigenous people around the world against colonialism, which is still wrapped up in capitalism and is wrapped up in a lot of what we've talked about today. So I know we're talking with the big systems right at the start. I think sometimes it might make more sense to go from the small to the large, but we're going from the large to the small and weaving them all in together, because I think it's good for us to know what the system actually is that we're challenging, that we're trying to engage with. Because if we don't understand the system and we don't understand what underpins it, it makes it a whole lot harder to change it. So that's why we're doing it this kind of top down and bottom up at the same time approach. I hope you're enjoying that. As always, you can send your tweaks of interest and inspiration. Maybe you have a poem or a song or a policy proposal, or perhaps just something you would like to share with us. We would love to receive that at thegreenstep3, the number 3 @gmail.com. You can also go to the website and you can find ways to donate and support us. You've heard this now enough times. You know the drill. Today, I'm going to treat you. We heard Eve's lovely song earlier, and now I have 2 beautiful poems to share with you. The first one is called The Great Unweaving, followed by The Rainbow Vision. And as we're in this great unweaving in many ways, we also have this beautiful rainbow vision to follow it on and to help us find our way through. So I hope Eve's poems are a medicine for you the way they are a medicine for me. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again next week. Next week, John will be back with us and we're going to meet with Jen, Jimmy and Fikra to talk about decoloniality, the issues of the colonial system that we're in, and dig into that subject matter a little bit. It's a big, weighty, potent and super important topic for us to be talking about as we engage with this. So I hope you'll be back with us next week. Sending you so much love as I send you off with these 2 beautiful poems from our lovely Eve Telford. Thank you so much, Eve. And thank you again to Maeve, who has created these beautiful little concertina interludes for our ears to enjoy. So, Grámór agus slán.
The Great Unweaving by Eve Telford. Earth was born from snake and egg. The great weaving had begun. The nomad goddess turned her head, and 3 moons spun the sun. Earth was born from breath and bone. The great weaving had begun. A trail of hills was stitched and sewn, and rivers sprang up strong. She conjured oceans from the gorge and wove a symphony of stars. She whittled forests in her forge and set the moon and sun apart. This was before Anthropocene. Now man and Gaia clash. We watch in proud apostasy the Orphic egg unhatch. We spill our smoke to snuff the sky and raze the forests down. We drain the holy oceans dry, unstitch the starry crown. The nomad goddess hides her head. The great unweaving is begun. A Fion coils back round the egg, and 3 moons split the sun. Rainbow Vision by Eve Telford. The crow dives to roost on the elder's hand. I have danced and swooped over burnished land. The spirits are sick with invasion. The hills are impaled and the forests are razed. Forgot are the trails that the ancestors paved in the ever-dreaming creation. The elder chants a song to the white-eyed crow. The songlines wander on and the creek spirits flow. But the pale ones neither listen nor paint their water source with simple ochre swirls. We won't forget our course in this ever-tarnished world. We have our rainbow vision.
Slán go bhfuil.
Slán.
Slán.